Hai, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome back with me, Dheyananda Alfadilah from PBI B. This time I will read a text with the title North American Indians. Part A. The first people to live in North America were the American Indians or Native Americans. According to the religious and folk stories of many Indian groups, their earliest ancestors arrived in North America from the inside of the earth. Modern scientists, however, believe that the first Native Americans came from Asia 50,000 to 80,000 years ago across the Bering Strait from Siberia to Alaska. They were nomads, that is, they did not live in one place but instead were always on the move as they looked for food. In other words, the first American Indians were hunters who followed the animals, their food source. During time during times of during times of migration from place to place, together the nomadic people and animals slowly migrate towards the south. Part B. These early inhabitants spread out all over the North American continent, now Canada, the United States, and Mexico. There was a great variety of languages, religious beliefs, and customs among the many tribes or groups of Indians. By the time the first Europeans arrived, the Indians were living in several different cultural areas. The members of various tribes in each center of culture had frequent contact with one another and shared similar characteristics, but they didn't have much in common with tribes in other cultures areas. For example, the Pima and Papago tribes of the southwestern desert had similar customs and habits, but their lifestyle was completely different from that of the Sioux who lived on the plains, the Apaches in the southwest, and the Kwakiutl and Tlingit on the northwest coast, or the Natchez and Tonkawas on the Gulf Coast and in Florida. The lifestyle of the people who live in each culture areas reflected the geography of the area. The inhabitants of the northwest coast, now British Columbia and Canada, live by hunting and fishing, but they didn't lead a nomadic life. They didn't need to follow animals from place to place because they could take advantage of these resources where they were living. The oceans and rivers produce salmon, halibut, and many other fish. The forests were rich in animal life. They offered deer, elk, and bear, as well as smaller animals. In the forest, the inhabitants could also find berries to eat and wood for both furniture and houses. Geography influenced other areas of life too. Hunting was seasonal work, best in the summer. Therefore, the tribe members were very busy at certain time of year. But in other seasons, they had the opportunity to spend time in creative activities such as woodworking, an art form for which the Northwest Coast Indians became well known. Unlike the inhabitants of the Northwest Coast, the Indians of the Eastern Plains had an agricultural society. They lived in farming communities and raised crops of corn, beans, squash, and tobacco. The members of these tribes lived differently from those in the Northwest because there were so few trees on the flat lands. Their houses were of earth instead of wood. While the food was growing, the people stayed in their communities. Yet after the harvest, when they had brought in the crops, the Indians rode west, on horses they had gotten from Spanish farmers, to hunt buffalo. During the months when they were looking for buffalo, the lifestyle of the hunters was similar to that of the nomadic tribes on the western plains. To these plains Indians, Both Eastern and Western, the buffalo was very important. It provided many necessities: meat, skin for teepees or houses that people could carry, clothing, and materials for spoons, bags, and beds. The buffalo hunt was also central to many artistic, social, and religious activities. When Europeans arrived on the North American continent several hundred years ago, the Native Americans' old way of life began to change. The differences, the differences between Europeans and Indians' values soon led to difficulties. As the whites, as the whites moved west, they took over more and more of the land for themselves. Native Americans lost not only their land but also their lives. To widespread wars and to sicknesses that were non-existent in North American before the Europeans came. But they had lost something even more important: their sense of identity. When the Plains Indians, for instance, lost their hunting grounds and when the buffalo became almost extinct, the most important characteristic of their society, the buffalo hunt, was gone. Today, although some Native Americans live in urban areas, many live on reservations, land that the government set aside for them. Some tribes have held on to the language and ancient customs of their ancestors, while others in general have forgotten the old way. Although the same group are relatively wealthy, most are very poor and have to had to receive help from the government. In recent years, many tribes have begun to regain their sense of identity and their cultural heritage. They are having wars once again, this time in court, where they have succeeded in several legal battles. They are fighting to win back their land and their fishing and hunting rights, the basis of their ancestors' way of life. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.